Healthy Hints. Welcome to Healthy Hints for a Happy Halloween, a webinar brought to you by the Caregiver Space and Meals to Heal. My name is Jonah Oken again, if you didn't hear me, and I work with the Caregiver Space, and I will be getting things going right now before I introduce our presenter today, which I'm really looking forward to doing. Halloween is often a time that can be filled with a lot of unhealthy choices, and it's our hope that in today's webinar we'll have an opportunity to introduce some alternative and fun options to make this holiday just as good as any other one. So looking forward, let's advance to the next slide, and let me give you a chance to learn a little bit about the two organizations that will be presenting today. Meals to Heal is a comprehensive nutrition solution, and they are dedicated to making the lives of cancer patients and their caregivers easier and less stressful by providing services which relieve them of the significant time, energy, and worry associated with ensuring Meals to Heal is a comprehensive nutrition solution. The services that Meals to Heal provides includes the following. They provide weekly home delivery of fresh, healthy meals to help cancer patients and their caregivers before, during, and after treatment. They offer nutritional coaching services from highly experienced oncology certified registered dietitians. They provide cancer survivorship programs and supportive product market with easy access to reputable oncology nutrition supplements and products. And they also provide free access to scientifically proven evidence-based nutrition information. And the Caregiver Space is a not-for-profit located in New York City. They are a community-based support service whose goal is to connect caregivers with those who understand, to encourage open expression as a means to cope with stress, frustration, isolation, and loss. It provides a safe space for discussions and live chats to take place as a way of nurturing the feelings and emotions that come up during the experience of caregiving, and also provides a variety of topics of interest for caregivers. The resources on hand at the Caregiver Space include a lifestyle library, which is full of meaningful content about caregiving and self-care practices, things that range from fitness and nutrition, sleep and mental health, bereavement, coaching, and therapeutic writing. The Caregiver Space also provides facilitated chats led by mental health professionals, and all of the services that are provided are free and are available 24 hours a day. Now let me take a moment to introduce our presenter today. Aimee Shea has a slew of fantastic credentials. She has a master's in public health. She's a registered dietitian and is a board-certified specialist in oncology nutrition. She received her bachelor's degree in nutritional science from the University of Maryland and her master's in public health from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And before moving to Columbus, Ohio, where she now resides, Aimee served as the outpatient oncology dietitian at the North Carolina Cancer Hospital, which is part of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Healthcare System. In addition to working part-time for Meals to Heal, Aimee is an adjunct nutrition instructor both online and at a few local universities. Now, as a couple of housekeeping points before we jump into it, if you do have questions throughout the webinar today, don't hesitate to tweet us at the hashtag CaregivingBites. And also at the bottom right of your screen, you will see a small square-shaped chat panel. And if you click that, that'll pop up, and there'll be an opportunity for you to write in questions that will be submitted that can either be answered by Aimee during the presentation, or they might be held and answered at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Aimee and let her share what we have in store for you today. Enjoy.
Thank you, Jonah. So for today's webinar, we're going to cover a bunch of different objectives. We're going to talk about safe costume safety and safe trick-or-treating ideas. We're going to talk about some healthy Halloween options and alternatives to your traditional Halloween treats. We'll talk a little about party safety and different fun ideas for Halloween parties. And then lastly, I'll wrap up with some Halloween food ideas and some fun recipes for you guys to try. So now that fall has finally arrived, it means that Halloween is just around the corner and there's lots of activities that are fun for kids of all ages. Of course, we always think of trick-or-treating, but also, trying on costumes, picking out costumes, going to costume parties, all these fun experiences that come with this time of year. At the same time, though, there are many different nutrition and safety considerations that we have to take into account during this Halloween season. So let's start off with trick-or-treating. A couple ideas and tips for making the most of your trick-or-treating experience. First, it's a good idea to make sure that kids and even adults eat a good healthy meal before heading out to trick-or-treat to help reduce the urge to snack while you're trick-or-treating. So don't go on an empty stomach. Second, it's a good idea to choose size-appropriate bags. So little, toddlers and preschoolers, maybe a small basket. Older kids, maybe a little bit larger bucket, but really nobody needs a bag that's as large as a big plastic garbage bag, partially because of a tripping hazard, but also because nobody probably really needs that much candy. And then it's a good idea to maybe stick with a small, 2 or 3 block radius. This way, most of your treats will be coming from neighbors or friends, and you'll end up with a more moderate amount of treats that's more manageable, not, too overwhelming. And then lastly, you need to wait until you're home to sample, and I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later. So traditionally, when we think of Halloween, of course, we think of all the typical candies, the little bite-sized Hershey bars or Snickers bars, all these kinds of chocolate-type candies, and then some fruit candies like the jelly beans or candy corn. And I've just listed here just some calorie information for typical traditional Halloween treats. You can see that calories can add up really quickly. And a lot of times these candies are very low in beneficial nutrients like vitamins and minerals and fiber. Now, I'm all for traditional Halloween candy. Don't get me wrong, I'm a chocoholic myself, but I think that there's a way to kind of incorporate this in moderation and overall, not go overboard on the traditional candy treats. So there are many healthier treat alternatives. I've just listed some here that people can pass out instead of having the traditional Halloween treats. A couple ideas or a couple reasons why you might want to choose healthier treat alternatives is not only just for the nutritional content. These may be lower in calories. They tend to have a better nutrient profile, more vitamins and minerals. A lot of them actually are decent amounts of fiber. Granola bars, dried fruit, trail mix, and even low-fat popcorn can be, provide decent amounts of fiber. So they can be healthy. But at the same time, if you think about these healthier treat alternatives, they really can be more inclusive for children who maybe have diabetes or other health-related conditions that prevent them from eating higher sugar candies and the traditional items. And then lastly, as my little point there on the slide shows you, remember that we really want to go with individually wrapped items when we're passing out candy to our neighbors. One interesting thing to be aware of as well for all of us, more for the adult population, but really for anybody, is that there can be some issues with consumption of black licorice. And this is sometimes a popular treat around Halloween because of the color. I don't know how many kids love the flavor of black licorice, but I know some adults certainly do. Anyway, so what's happening here is that the FDA has found that there is a natural ingredient that's naturally present in black licorice, ingredient called glycyrrhizin, that actually can cause the kidneys to excrete excess potassium. And potassium is very important for normal heart activity. So if we get too low, if our potassium gets too low, then we can have issues with abnormal heart rhythms like arrhythmia. We can have hypertension or high blood pressure, edema or swelling, lethargy, and even heart failure. So we can have a too low of a level of potassium if we consume excess amounts of black licorice. Now, what do I mean by excess? This is really a very high amount. So if you're consuming multiple 2-ounce bags a 2-ounce bag is about 40 to 50 grams each. So multiple 2-ounce bags every day for over 14 days or 2 weeks. Then you'd be at increased risk. So probably for the average person, you're not going to be consuming this much black licorice, but it is just a consumer advisory to be aware of in regards to this specific component of black licorice. Good thing though, the effects are not permanent. So really, once you quit eating the high amounts of black licorice, there's no problem and the potassium levels go back to normal. But overall, the FDA's advice is that regardless of your age or health status, just avoid consuming large amounts of black licorice for extended periods of time. And then there's lots of other ideas that are non-food treats. I've just listed a bunch here for you guys to think about. Kids love all of these things, that whether it's silly false teeth or some funny glasses or maybe a fancy eraser or a pencil topper. I know bubbles are a big hit in my house. Whistles, stickers, any kind of fun non-treat items are good. The only thing to consider also is that small items should be limited to kids over the age of 3 because of issues with choking hazard. And then we can have non-food items that actually promote physical activity. So this is a great way to get kids moving and expending some of that energy that they maybe have built up and just kind of get out there and be active. So things like bouncy ball, a jump rope, sidewalk chalk for hopscotch or foursquare, bean bags, and foam flyers or gliders that can run around the yard throwing these plastic planes. So there's lots of fun alternatives to your traditional Halloween treats that can be a really good idea for kids of all ages. Then now, once the treats are home, a couple of things you want to do before eating them. Of course, a parent or adult should inspect all the treats before the child eats them. Jessica, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Aimee.
I just got a message from someone saying that they lost audio.
Okay, let's check.
Sorry, everyone. Hang on one second.
It might be that person in particular because if anyone else would put in the chat box if they have an issue with audio, I have not noticed anything. And the program is functioning normally.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep going. I apologize for the pause there. Anyway, so once the treats are home, a parent or an adult obviously should inspect the treats. What you're looking for is we only want to have treats that are commercially wrapped, and then anything that has signs of tampering, like tears in the wrapper, tiny pinholes, unusual appearance, or discoloration, those are things that we want to throw out. And in general, of course, when in doubt, throw it out. So Halloween is also a perfect time to teach children about moderation, and we can teach ourselves a little something too, I'm sure. But looking at all the treats that are brought home and kind of creating a little inventory and deciding when is an appropriate time for candy and how much candy at one time. And also, just as a side note, for anyone who may be having audio trouble, we are recording this, so it is something that you can do another, at a later date if you're missing any of the audio. But anyway, so back to moderation. So we set a healthy eating plan and we decide when candy is allowed and how much candy is allowed and stick to those limits, then that is fine. It's perfectly fine to include these treats, maybe a few on the night of Halloween and a few each day thereafter. There's really no need to forbid or restrict candy. And remember that sometimes doing that actually can backfire and make candy that much more enticing, so that, doesn't really help set up a good relationship with food. And lastly, you can pair a treat with a healthy snack. So maybe start off with some apple slices and then end up with your little bite-sized Hershey bar or something like that. And most candy has a very long shelf life, so we can save it for later on in the year or whenever. And then lastly, it's also a good idea to don't forget to brush your teeth and floss and follow proper dental hygiene practices so that this candy doesn't end up causing cavities. Now moving on to costumes. This is a little bit less nutrition, but more just general Halloween costume safety. Of course, we want to wear flame-resistant fabrics for obvious safety reasons. It's a good idea to wear bright, reflective colors or add reflective tape. You know, generally trick-or-treating is happening around dusk, so we need to make sure that we're being safe with our car safety and things like that, and just wearing that reflective gear. It's a good idea to choose makeup and hats instead of masks to avoid any tripping that could potentially happen if you can't see well out of the mask. Also, make sure that the costumes aren't so long that you can trip on them. And you know, I'm in the Midwest. In the last few years, our Halloweens have been a little chilly and rainy, so watching out for puddles and things like that. So keeping the costume short so that we're not having any tripping issues. As far as makeup goes, it's a good idea to test a little bit of makeup on a small area of your arm before actually applying it anywhere else. If there's a rash, or redness, or swelling, that may be a sign of an allergy to the makeup. So maybe something that you shouldn't use. And the FDA also has a list with that little link there on the slide that is a list of the color additives that it shows you which color additives are allowed to be used in which cosmetics. And it shows you on which parts of the body. So are they safe for lipstick, is it safe for eyes, whatever else. So you can use that list if you're concerned about color additives in the Halloween makeup. And then lastly, there's another FDA warning about decorative contact lenses. The little picture on the slide shows someone, you know, with interesting, you know, kind of spooky green eyes. And you'll see this a lot with different costumes and things like that. But really, unless an eye doctor has prescribed and properly provided, you know, lenses that are fit properly, we really should not use decorative contact lenses. Buying contact lenses without an exam and prescription from an eye care professional can cause serious disorders and infections and may lead to permanent vision loss. And believe it or not, it's actually illegal to sell decorative lenses without a prescription, but it happens a lot around Halloween, even though it is illegal. So just be aware of those costume ideas as well. And again, with Halloween, this is a time when we might be going to parties or having parties ourselves. So here's a couple party ideas for you to think about. We can think a lot about using kind of fruits and vegetables of the season and having a harvest theme. So this can help us with healthier options to provide at parties. You know, things like pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cookies, hot apple cider, baked apples, even popcorn can be healthier options that feature the fruits and veggies of the season. One thing that's interesting to note is that a regular apple is usually 60 to 100 calories, but a caramel or candy apple can be over 500 calories. So kind of scaling it back, keeping it simple, and not adding a lot to the food is a good idea. And then focusing on fun and not only food. So what can we do? What kinds of activities can we do to get everybody involved? Maybe burn some calories, get a little activity going. So we can decorate pumpkins. We can play a ring toss or a beanbag toss with pumpkins, whether they're real pumpkins or plastic pumpkins. We can do pin the heart on the scarecrow, a costume contest and dance off. We can bob for apples. We can go for a hayride or go to a bonfire, face painting, temporary tattoos, those kinds of ideas. There's lots of things that are very fun and don't have to be focused around food. And then in general, there are several food safety considerations to keep in mind during a party. First, we want to be aware of quote unquote spooky cider. So anything that's an unpasteurized cider or juice can contain harmful bacteria like salmonella or E. coli. So we really want to be careful to avoid unpasteurized beverages. Sticking with those pasteurized juices and ciders is much safer. As tempting as it may be, we want to try to avoid sampling raw cookie dough or cake batter because of the most likely raw eggs that are present in that batter, because uncooked eggs have a potential for passing along foodborne illness. And then, of course, we want to scare away bacteria by keeping our foods chilled, especially perishable foods specifically, until serving time. So a couple ideas on that. You can arrange several small platters and refrigerate them until it's time to serve, and then rotate those platters every 2 hours. So it may be the same food on that platter, and you're just switching it out to get it back in the refrigerator after that 2 hour mark. Also, if you buy the store-bought party trays that are cold, you can actually fill the lid with ice and set the tray on top of the ice. So that kind of keeps it nice and chilled throughout the party. Or if you have your own salads or other perishable items in a bowl, you can nest them in a larger bowl of ice, again, to keep them nice and cold and prevent any bacteria from growing. Keep in mind that perishable foods are things like finger sandwiches, cheese platters, fruit, tossed salads, cold pasta with any kind of meat, poultry, or seafood, and then any kind of cream pies or cakes with a whipped cream or cream cheese frosting. So those are the foods we want to watch out for. And lastly, it's very important to don't leave perishable items out for more than 2 hours. So make sure you're paying attention. They should not be out of the fridge for more than 2 hours. And if it's over 90 degrees, they really shouldn't be out for more than 1 hour. But in all likelihood, by Halloween, we're probably not over 90 degrees. And then, of course, which is something that's true regardless of what you're doing, is to wash hands before and after eating, just proper hygiene practices. Here's a little activity that I found from the fightback.org website about bobbing for apples. So the traditional way of bobbing for apples can certainly be a little bit germy, I guess you could say. So this is an alternative that's a fun idea for kids. So basically you're cutting out little apple shapes from construction paper, writing a fun activity on them, hooking a paper clip to it, and then having a little fishing pole magnet to bob for the apple, and then do whatever the activity says. So maybe it says do 5 jumping jacks, or it says, spin around while singing your ABCs or something like that. That's maybe a toddler friendly or preschool friendly activity. But it's a fun way to bob for apples and be active. So then a couple other tips in regards to being a caregiver and thinking about this season and how to manage it while being a caregiver. Of course, maintaining sanity is very important during any holiday season, whether it's Halloween or later on towards the end of the year with Thanksgiving and Christmas. Fun is a very important part of all this time, but it's important not to stress about doing too much. If you're someone who likes to be involved in the action, that's great. But remember that if you don't temper yourself, you can get overloaded by trying to do too much. So with many activities, costumes, and food, you don't have to be the only one responsible for making it all happen. Another thing, it's a good idea if you're typically the one who's hosting the parties, the Halloween party, or running all the activities, maybe think about asking a friend or a neighbor to host the party this year. They may have never tried this before because they didn't want to step on your toes, but by taking the party out of your house, it's easier to see what contributions you can make and kind of relieve yourself of some of that extra stress. And then lastly, plan what you can do and stick to it. Try to anticipate, that you don't take on too much at one time. It's easy to think that we can handle more than we really can. So choose reasonable projects and communicate that to others and make sure everyone knows that this is what's realistic for you this year. And it's a good idea to reframe your attitude. I think a lot of us have trouble doing this sometimes, but you are allowed to delegate responsibilities. In the midst of hectic schedules, sometimes, it's important to reframe our attitudes so we can adjust what our experience ends up being like. And, as you reflect about the parts of Halloween that can be most stressful, notice opportunities to hand over the reins to someone who might enjoy being in the center of action. It doesn't have to all fall on you. Take a second to reflect on what's fun and what's expected. Halloween is supposed to be a celebration. Work on distinguishing what you think you're supposed to do versus what you want to do. If you always feel obligated to make tons of peripheral decorations that end up draining your energy, take a pass on them for this year. In the end, it won't really matter. And you can go back to them maybe when your life is a little less stressful. And then it's important to think about conserving your energy. Be sure to sort of take a breath before you speak, and don't blurt out yes before you really know for sure if you can commit to something. So don't take on plans prematurely. Also practice saying, can I think about that and get back to you? Sometimes we have a hard time doing that. We just want to jump in and say yes, but right now you need to conserve your energy and kind of manage stress in that regard. And then if you have committed to plans, break up your to-do list. Instead of leaving things up to the last minute, make a 35 to 40 minute window of time where you can churn out projects. So little portions of time to help kind of get those little projects done. And then at the party, while you work, or anywhere in between, create moments to get a quick breath of air. Step into another room or sink into your body for a moment. Take a few breaths to clear your mind, your mood, and your stress before returning back to the action. So frequent short breaks are always a good idea. Now we'll take a second to go through a few Halloween food ideas and recipe ideas that I thought might be fun to share. So there's lots of things that we can do that are kid-friendly and fun and festive for this season. So Jackolantern pizzas are one idea. Basically, you're taking an English muffin, making a little English muffin pizza, and then using bits of green or black olives to make the little jack-o'-lantern face and baking them that way. Mashed potato ghosts are another fun and similar idea. Basically, you're just putting the mashed potatoes on a plate and decorating them with, again, little pieces of black olives to serve as the ghost eyes. One sort of heart-healthy eating tip is to prepare your mashed potatoes with low-fat or fat-free milk and healthy margarine made with plant oils to help decrease some of those heart not-so-friendly fats that we can get in our typical way that we prepare mashed potatoes. Popcorn ghosts are another fun activity for kids to participate in making and then eating. Basically, you're just wrapping you're wrapping popcorn in plastic wrap and then kind of taking a white napkin over it and tying the napkin together to kind of leave out the ghost body, and then you can draw a little face on the popcorn ball. Witches' smiles are another fun and healthy idea. I made a couple of them. I know not everybody's video is working, but I wanted to just show this is kind of my little version of a witch's smile right here. Basically, it's 2 apple slices with peanut butter and then some raisins in between, serving as the witch's decayed teeth and her red lips. And then they're a very yummy little snack to eat after you're done displaying them. Bony fingers are another fun activity for kids that I made. You just grab some clear plastic gloves, put popcorn in them, tie them with a little ribbon, and this could be a fun little party favor or a little treat at a party with yummy popcorn inside a fiber-full treat. And witch's brew, I'm not going to go through all these steps here, but basically what you're doing is, I'll just jump to the next slide, is you're going to see that there's a picture here. Sorry, hang on one second. Lost my little clicker. There we go. So you basically are freezing some sort of raspberry puree inside a plastic glove, and then you're putting that the frozen hand, in a bowl of ginger ale and apple cider and decorating it with spiders and gummy worms and things like that. So it's a little spooky looking drink. Murky blood is another fun little Halloween drink. It's basically a healthy mixture of cranberry juice, apple cider, and orange juice. So lots of vitamin-rich juices that, when combined together, kind of give this dark red appearance. And then again, as I mentioned before, make sure to use those pasteurized juices. Then pumpkin cookies, there's a lot of ideas and ways to think about this. First off, you could just mix yellow and red food coloring, making orange, and then put that into the actual sugar cookie dough. So you turn your sugar cookies orange and cut them into pumpkin shapes. Or another idea would be just bake the cookies the regular color, cut them into pumpkin shapes, and then decorate them with orange frosting. You can make faces with chocolate chips, raisins, pieces of fruit, whatever it may be. And then one of my favorite fall treats, I guess, is just making cookies that have pumpkin in them. So they're not pumpkin shaped, but they're pumpkin cookies. We have a recipe that we'll include in the post-webinar information, but here's some samples of what a pumpkin cookie might look like, these ones. So there's pumpkin chocolate chip cookies with little chocolate chips and oatmeal. And then I also made plain ones that are just pumpkin oatmeal without the chocolate chip. So that basically sums up our presentation for today. Again, if there's any questions that I can answer, you can type those into the little chat box, which is the little blue square down on the bottom right side of your screen. This webinar, like I said, will be recorded. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to, or if you have any concerns that you need to go back and review, you can see that on the recording. And then we'll we'll send an email with follow-up information when the recording is available. And also in that email, you will be sent a special discount code for 10% off of your purchase from Meals to Heal. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I appreciate everyone listening in, and we will actually be doing a couple more webinars later on this year for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So be sure to check back and see what else you can learn from us later on in the holiday season. Thanks a lot. All right, thanks again, everyone, for attending, and stay tuned for information on the recording and the discount code in a follow-up email. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.